Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into something that might sound, well, a little dry at first, IT audits. But, trust me, this is about way more than just numbers and spreadsheets. It's about protecting your data and your privacy and even your money.
Absolutely. You could almost think of IT audits like building a super secure, high-tech fortress for all your valuable digital stuff.
Okay, I like that. I'm intrigued. So I hear we're using a podcast called the Compliance Officers Playbook as our guide today.
We are, and they use this really clever analogy of a house to explain these concepts. We're going to be exploring two big players in the IT audit world, ITGC and ITAC.
All right, let's break this down. ITGC, that's IT general controls, right?
Sure.
What's the big picture here?
Exactly. Think of ITGC as the foundation and the walls of the roof, the essential structure of your digital house. It's all about creating a secure and stable environment for your IT systems.
So without strong ITGC, you're basically building your data house on sand. One good storm and it all comes crashing down.
Pretty much. A big part of ITGC is all about access controls.
Hmm.
So who gets the keys to your house? In the digital world, this translates to who has access to your systems and data. We're talking strong password policies, like requiring complex passwords and regular changes, almost like having multiple locks on your doors.
Makes sense. And multi-factor authentication, that's like having a security guard at the gate, checking IDs before anyone can get in.
Spot on.
Oh.
Another key area of ITGC is system operations. Imagine your house needs regular maintenance, right? Making sure the electricity works, the plumbing is in good shape. In IT, this means things like backups and software updates and monitoring systems for any signs of trouble.
Got it. So it's like making sure the digital lights stay on and the data pipes don't spring any leaks. Sounds essential to me.
Absolutely. And then there's disaster recovery. What's your plan if there's a fire or a break-in or a natural disaster? In the physical world, you'd have an evacuation plan, insurance, a way to rebuild. ITGC includes those same precautions, but for your data. Think backups stored in a separate location, a plan to get systems back online quickly after a disruption.
That reminds me, actually. I had a friend whose business got hit by ransomware a few months back. Their entire system was locked down, and they didn't have proper backups. They lost months of data. It was a nightmare.
That's a perfect example of why a solid disaster recovery plan is crucial. It's not a matter of if something will happen, but when. And good ITGC helps you minimize the damage.
So we've got this strong foundation, the walls, the roof, all thanks to ITGC. But what about all the stuff inside the house? This is where ITAC comes in, right?
You got it. ITAC, or IT Application Controls, focuses on the specific applications and systems within that secure environment we've built with ITGC. Think of them as the appliances in your house, the things that need to work correctly and reliably.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here. The Compliance Officers Playbook uses the example of a ceiling fan, right? You don't want it to randomly fall from the ceiling, do you?
Exactly. Or imagine your stove suddenly turning itself on in the middle of the night. Not a good situation. In the IT world, these appliances could be things like payroll systems or inventory management software or even your online banking app. ITAC is all about making sure these systems function as they should, processing data accurately and reliably.
Okay, so it sounds like if ITGC is about building the secure structure, ITAC is about making sure that everything inside that structure is running smoothly and doing its job properly. No leaky faucets or faulty wiring.
You got it. And there are a couple of key areas within ITAC that are really important. First, there's transaction processing. Think about any process that involves calculations or moving data from one place to another. Payroll calculations, bank transfers, online orders. These all rely on accurate and reliable transaction processing.
Wow, so even a tiny error in the code could have massive repercussions.
Absolutely. And that's why ITAC is so important. It's about catching those errors before they become major problems.
Okay, transaction processing, check. What else falls under ITAC?
Another crucial area is system inputs and outputs. Think about when you enter your login credentials or deposit a check using your digital banking app. Those are inputs. And when you see your account balance or receive a confirmation email, those are outputs. ITAC ensures that those inputs are validated and processed correctly and that the outputs are accurate and reliable.
So it's like making sure the data is flowing through the system the right way at the right time and without any hiccups.
Exactly. ITAC is all about those fine-grained controls that ensure accuracy and reliability and data integrity.
Okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this, but how about we bring this all to life with a real-world example, something everyone can relate to?
Let's imagine you're using your banking app on your phone to transfer money. That's a perfect illustration of how ITGC and ITAC work together seamlessly behind the scenes. What are some of the things that come to mind when you think about security and reliability in that scenario?
Well, first off, I'd want to make sure no one else can access my account, so strong passwords and maybe that two-factor authentication we talked about earlier.
Right. So those are ITGC controls in action. They're securing the overall environment, the foundation of your digital house.
Yeah.
But what about the specific act of transferring money? What are some things that need to happen for that to work correctly and securely?
Well, the app needs to accurately deduct the money from my account and deposit it into the correct recipient account. And I definitely want some kind of confirmation that the transfer was successful.
Yes, exactly. Those are all examples of ITAC at work. It's ensuring that the specific functions within the banking app are operating accurately and reliably. It's checking that the right amount is being transferred, that the recipient's account details are correct, and that you receive a confirmation message once the transaction is complete.
Wow, I never really thought about all those behind-the-scenes processes. It's amazing how much is going on that we just take for granted.
That's the thing with IT audits. They're working silently in the background, making sure everything runs smoothly and securely. But when things go wrong, that's when people really start to pay attention.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense, but why should I care about this if I'm not an IT professional? How did this impact my everyday life?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive. Because the truth is, whether you realize it or not, ITGC and ITAC are at work in almost every aspect of our digital lives, from online shopping and social media to healthcare records and even our smart home devices.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. We'll have to pick this up in part two. Okay, so we've built this amazing digital fortress with ITGC, and we've got all the appliances humming along nicely thanks to ITAC. But how does all of this, actually impact me? I mean, I'm not running some giant corporation here.
Right. That's a common misconception. We often think of IT audits as something that only big companies have to worry about. But the reality is, ITGC and ITAC are at work behind the scenes in almost every aspect of our digital lives.
Okay, so walk me through this. How are these controls protecting me when I'm just, scrolling through social media or ordering takeout online?
Think about all the apps you use on a daily basis. Your online banking, your favorite shopping sites, social media platforms, even your healthcare portal, right? These all rely on robust ITGC and ITAC to safeguard your data and ensure everything runs smoothly.
So it's not just about, preventing hackers from stealing my credit card info.
Right. It's much bigger than that. ITGC is like the overall security system for your digital world. It's making sure that only authorized users can access sensitive information, that data is encrypted both in transit and at rest, and that systems are resilient to attacks.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about ITAC? How does that factor into my everyday life?
Remember, ITAC is all about those specific application level controls. Let's take that online takeout order as an example. ITAC is making sure the app accurately calculates the total, processes your payment correctly, and transmits your order to the right restaurant.
So it's preventing those frustrating situations where you end up paying twice or your food gets delivered to the wrong address.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about your healthcare portal. ITAC ensures that your medical records are only accessible to authorized personnel, that prescriptions are processed accurately, and that any changes to your information are tracked and auditable.
Wow, I'm starting to see how this really touches every corner of our lives.
Right. It's about building trust in the digital systems we rely on every day. It's about knowing that our data is safe, that transactions are accurate, and that systems are functioning as they should.
That's a really good point. It's easy to forget about all of this when everything's working smoothly. But what happens when those controls fail?
Right. Well, we hear about data breaches and security incidents all the time. These can have devastating consequences for individuals and businesses alike. Stolen identities, financial losses, reputational damage.
It's scary to think about, honestly.
That's why understanding ITGC and ITAC is so important. It's about being aware of the risks and taking steps to protect yourself.
Okay, so what can I actually do to be more, more proactive about my own digital security?
Well, there are some simple but effective things that everyone can do. First and foremost, use strong, unique passwords for every online account. I know it's tempting to reuse the same one, but it's a huge risk.
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that in the past. But I recently started using a password manager, and it's a game changer.
Password managers are fantastic tools. They generate strong passwords and store them securely, so you don't have to remember them all. And whenever possible, enable two-factor authentication. This adds an extra layer of security by requiring a second form of verification, like a code sent to your phone, in addition to your password.
Good advice. It's a little bit of extra effort, but definitely worth it for the added peace of mind.
Another important step is to be wary of phishing scams. You know, those emails or text messages that try to trick you into giving up personal information.
Oh yeah, those are sneaky. I almost fell for one recently that looked like it was from my bank.
It's getting harder and harder to spot them these days. The key is to be skeptical of any unsolicited messages asking for personal information or login credentials. Don't click on links or open attachments unless you are absolutely sure of the sender.
And I guess it's always a good idea to check the sender's email address carefully and look for any red flags, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look for misspellings, odd formatting, or suspicious domain names. And if something feels off, don't hesitate to contact the organization directly through their official website or phone number to verify the legitimacy of the message.
Okay, so strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and being phishing aware. What else should I have on my digital security checklist?
Well, keeping your software updated is crucial. Updates often include security patches that address vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit. So when you see those update notifications, don't ignore them.
I'll admit I sometimes put those off, but now that I understand the importance, I'm going to be more diligent about updating my devices and apps.
It's also wise to be mindful of the permissions you grant to apps.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what information an app is requesting access to, and be cautious about granting access to sensitive data like your contacts, location, or camera, unless it's absolutely necessary for the app to function.
That's a really good point. I've definitely just clicked allow without really thinking about it in the past.
Right. It's worth taking a moment to consider the potential risk before granting access to your personal information, and regularly review the permissions you've granted to apps. You can usually revoke access uh, to data you're no longer comfortable sharing.
All this is incredibly helpful. I feel like I'm starting to develop a much stronger security mindset.
That's exactly the goal. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge and taking proactive steps to stay safe online.
Now, we've been talking about IT audits from the perspective of protecting individuals, but I know these audits can also be conducted within organizations, right? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
You're right. There are different types of IT audits, and they serve different purposes. The most common distinction is between internal and external audits. Have you ever heard of those?
I've heard the terms, but I'm not entirely sure what the difference is.
Let's start with internal audits. As the name suggests, these are conducted by an organization's own internal audit team. They're typically looking at things like the organization's IT policies and procedures, the effectiveness of their IT controls, and their overall compliance with regulations and industry standards.
So it's like a self check to make sure everything's in order.
Exactly. Internal audits help organizations identify any weaknesses in their IT environment, assess risks, and make improvements to strengthen their security posture.
That makes sense. And what about external audits? How are those different?
External audits are conducted by independent third-party auditors. These are often required for regulatory compliance or financial reporting purposes.
So it's like getting an outside expert to come in and give you a stamp of approval.
In a way, yes. External auditors provide an independent assessment of an organization's IT controls and their compliance with relevant standards. Their findings are used to provide assurance to stakeholders such as investors, regulators, and customers that the organization is managing its IT risks effectively.
So internal audits are more about continuous improvement and self-assessment, while external audits are more about demonstrating compliance and accountability to external parties.
That's a good way to summarize it. Both types of audits play important roles in ensuring the security and reliability of IT systems.
This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I never realized how much goes into these audits and how they impact us on both an individual and an organizational level.
It's a complex field, but hopefully this deep dive has shed some light on the key concepts and why they matter.
It definitely has. I'm feeling much more informed and empowered already. But before we wrap up, I'd love to leave our listeners with something to think about, something that'll help them connect this all back to their own lives.
I like that idea. Let's give them a little homework assignment.
Okay, here's the challenge for our listeners. Take a moment to think about all the ways ITGC and ITAC are at work in your daily life.
What are some examples of those controls in action?
Exactly. From the apps you use to the websites you visit to the transactions you make online. How are these controls working behind the scenes to protect your data, ensure your privacy, and keep those digital systems running smoothly?
And more importantly, what steps can you take to be more proactive about your own digital security and make sure your digital house is well protected?
That's a great question to ponder. We'll be back in part 3 to wrap up our deep dive into IT audits.
Mm.
Until then, stay safe out there in the digital world.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I gotta say, I'm looking at my phone and laptop a whole new way now.
I bet, right? It's amazing how much is happening behind the scenes, to keep our digital lives running smoothly and securely.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about ITGC, the foundation of our digital house, and ITAC, which keeps all those digital appliances running smoothly.
Hmm.
And we even explored how these concepts, impact us every day, not just good companies. Yeah, and we left our listeners with that thought-provoking question to spot examples of ITGC and ITAC in their own lives.
Right, right.
Hmm.
So are you ready to dive back in and unpack some of those real-world examples?
Absolutely. Let's bring those concepts to life.
Okay, so let's say I'm doing some online shopping. I find a cool pair of shoes, I add them to my cart, proceed to checkout. What are some ITGC elements that might be protecting me during this process?
Well, right from the start, the website should be using HTTPS, which you can see in the address bar. That little lock icon means your connection to the website is encrypted, so any information you enter, like your credit card details, is protected as it travels over the internet.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. I always look for that lock icon, but I didn't realize it was part of ITGC.
It is, and when you create an account or login, the website should enforce strong password requirements, another key aspect of
Okay.
ITGC. They might also use 𝐶HAs to prevent bots from creating fake accounts.
Ah, yes. Those CAPI TCHAs, sometimes they're so tricky, but I guess it's for a good reason.
Exactly. It's all about, adding layers of security. And behind the scenes, the website should have robust systems in place to protect against cyber attacks, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, security monitoring. All these things fall under ITGC.
So even though I don't see this thing happening, they're working hard in the background to keep my data safe.
Exactly. Now, let's move on to ITAC. Think about what happens when you actually, place your order. The website needs to validate your payment information, make sure the items are in stock, generate an order confirmation, and transmit the order to the fulfillment center.
Okay, so ITAC is making sure all those individual steps, happen accurately and in the right order. No double charges, no phantom orders, and hopefully the right size shoes show up at my door.
You got it. ITAC ensures those processes are working as intended, preventing errors and ensuring data integrity. It might also involve things like fraud detection systems, which analyze transactions for any suspicious activity.
Wow, it's really impressive how much thought and effort goes into, building these secure and reliable systems.
Right. It's a continuous process. Technology is constantly evolving, and new threats are emerging all the time. So organizations need to be constantly adapting their ITGC and ITAC
Yeah,
to stay ahead of the curve.
that makes sense. It's like a never-ending game of digital cat and mouse.
In a way, it is, but the good news is there are many resources available to help individuals and organizations understand these concepts and implement effective controls.
I'm definitely feeling more informed and empowered after our deep dive, and I'm going to be paying much closer attention to those ITGC and ITAC elements in my own digital life from now on.
That's fantastic. Knowledge is power. And, the more you understand these concepts, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the digital world safely and securely.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It was my pleasure. I always enjoyed demystifying the world of IT audits.
And a big thank you to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and engaging.
Remember, strong ITGC and ITAC are the keys to building a secure and reliable digital house.
That's right. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe online.